Hi, this is Adam Wolf, physical therapist. One of the regions that I think is really important to make sure people have the right amount of mobility and stability in is the thoracic spine. It's one of those key regions of the body that connects everywhere. And if we think about the thoracic spine needing the right amount of side bending and rotation, and I've talked about that before, we can tie that into any number of fascial lines. I think about, personally, I look at typically 5 fascial lines on people when they're moving around. The first one is the anterior line. The second one is the posterior line. The third one is the lateral line. The fourth is this anterior X, for which there's 2, one on one side and one on the other. You can see we've got this lengthened through here. And then we've got a posterior X on the other side. When I'm in this position, my right glute, thoracolumbar fascia, left lateral long together. And so we can think about these fascial lines using this tool right here. This is the Edge Mobility Suspension Strap Trainers, which I really like a lot. I have my patients buy them and I use them at home a lot. I can emphasize any body part for mobility and stability. We're going to stick with the thoracic spine right now. And so some of the movements that I like using the suspension strap trainers to create straight extension, one I just like to call it a fallout. And when I'm using these, I'll teach people to do it at home. I will also use these tools to enhance mobility myself. I will have people get in and do some of these movements, and I'll show you this in a little while. And I will drive motion into the system, block or speed up particular body parts. So to first start, what we'll do is I'll be in this position right here. Want to make sure that they're about even, and then I like to just do a straight fallout where I'm creating a little bit of thoracic extension as I do that. I want to make sure that I'm not dumping into my thoracolumbar junction or moving from my head. The idea being is your spine stays in one position. As I do this, I get to here and I can start to come back. I like this because it gets the serratus anterior involved, and for those that have scapulo dysfunction, shoulder complex dysfunction, I think the serratus anterior is one of those muscles that I'm going to make sure is functioning really well, and that I will establish through some isometric contractions some of that somatosensory cortex space. So that would be one progression from here, just that fallout. From there, what I like to do is I like to add some lunging and more dynamic movement. Same up motion with the lower or upper body. I start to do a little bit of an alternating lunge as I go through here. I can go in different directions as I'm lunging to create that. The progression from there is I can lunge out and pull back. Okay, so that might be a progression that I like. I particularly like the suspension straps to create extension moments. I've talked a little bit before about that if I want to create extension moments, particularly in the thoracic spine, I'm going to work on side bending and rotation in the same direction, or what's called type 2 motion. So what I'll do here is I'm going to make one strap a little bit shorter. And so I'm going to pre-position my hand. I'm going to bring my left hand up overhead. So when I bring my left hand up overhead, I'm side bent right. My right hand being behind me and towards the right rotates me to the right. So I'm in what we can call a side bending and rotation in the same direction or together. From here, or I can be out in this position, depending on if I want more transverse plane or frontal plane movement or dominance. Okay? And then I'm going to do that same alternating foot pattern. I can do anterior lunges or steps. I can do it in different directions, multi-directional movements to start to create extension and rotation, side bending and rotation in the same direction, which will help with extension. So those are some of my go-to exercises. Any number of ways. Somebody, if I can't get into side bending and rotation up in this position, I can bring one hand across, so now I'm rotated, this hand side bent. I've got the same motion in my spine as I do from this position. Okay, so from here, I can still do the multi-directional movement pattern that starts to emphasize side bending and rotation in the same direction. So again, using the Edge Mobility Suspensions Trainers, I think it's a great strategy to be able to create some motion, particularly in the thoracic spine. Next, what I'm going to show you in the second video here is how I will use this to emphasize the different fascial lines rather than a particular body part.